We deal a lot with acting out behavior in therapy. We have a lot of emotions and anxieties that come to the surface and cause people to do things that ordinarily they might not do. And sometimes when we're looking at our past and the events that brought us to be in treatment in the first place, we can see a lot of behaviors that we're not too happy about, certainly not proud of. So let's look at where some of these come from. This is something we call peeling the onion. We have an acting out behavior, let's say in this case, violence. Now, if I ask somebody, where did this violence come from? They might say, oh, well, I was angry, and leave it at that. But that's not the end of the story. That's one layer. We have to peel the onion a little bit deeper than that. So let's say this person was angry. Well, my next question would be, where did the anger come from? Sometimes they look confused when you ask them that, and they're not exactly sure how to respond. You have to dig a little bit, because we're not used to asking ourselves these questions. But generally, we'll find out that anger comes from frustration that's unresolved. So you say, okay, well, that's easy to figure out. I was frustrated, which made me angry, which made me act out. No, that's not the end of the story. What made you frustrated? And a lot of times we get the same confused look yet again. Generally, if we dig down a little bit, we find out that most frustration comes from an anxiety. An anxiety that's left unresolved becomes a frustration. A frustration that's unresolved becomes an anger. An anger that's unresolved results in acting out behavior. So that's pretty easy to figure out. Okay, we've traced it all the way back to its root beginning, which is anxiety. No, you didn't. Let's peel the onion a little bit more. Where did the anxiety come from? Well, if we're honest with ourselves and we peel that layer down, we'll generally find out that anxiety always comes from the same place. Fear. The reason this is such a difficult task sometimes is that we're afraid of fear. We really are. We don't like to admit fear. We don't like to talk about fear. We don't like to face fear, certainly. So we run from it, we hide from it, we deny it. And this is when fear causes all of its problems. Fear by itself is not a negative emotion, but failure to deal with it properly certainly is a negative behavior. Now, fear is not the end of the story. If you come down to the wire and peel that one last layer, you usually find out that the fear has to originate from something, some event, some happening, some thought, some activity, and invariably, most of our fears in adulthood, at least, come from a perceived loss of control. If we perceive that we're losing control of a situation, if we're asked to let go of life's handrails and walk unassisted, we get a little bit nervous. If we think for a moment that we're not in control of the universe, that we're not manipulating the world around us and in charge, we get a little bit nervous. We get a little bit anxious. We get a little bit fearful. We get a little bit frustrated. We get a little bit angry. And we lash out. However, if you can ask yourself before you get to this point, what's causing it? And be honest enough to say, okay, well, I am a little bit afraid. I am a little bit anxious. I do have a perceived loss of control. And admit that to yourself. 9 times out of 10, the impetus to take it further vanishes. If you have issues that can't be resolved this easily, of course, we always suggest you see a therapist. But I'm putting this illustration up here today only to show you that there is a way to exercise self-honesty. So please give it a try. Thank you.